I was on my way to my daughter's will reading when my neighbor's frantic shout stopped me in my tracks and possibly saved my life. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. His words revealed a horrifying truth about my son-in-law, sending an icy dread coiling in the pit of my stomach. But nothing could prepare me for the moment I finally walked into that lawyer's office, and he fainted dead away at the sight of me. "Susan, don't start that engine." My hand, already on the cool metal of the car door handle, froze in place. My neighbor David Henderson's voice sliced through the tranquil morning quiet, as sharp and sudden as a siren in the night. I pivoted to see him, a man usually so composed, running full tilt across his immaculately kept lawn. He was still in his plaid bathrobe and slippers, a look of sheer panic carved into the familiar lines of his face. Only moments before, I'd been adjusting the collar of my somber black blouse in the rearview mirror, trying to brace myself for the ordeal ahead. The reading of Clara's will, my daughter's last message to a world she left far too soon. The formal black suit I wore felt oppressively heavy. A suit of armor for a war I never imagined I'd have to fight. "What is it, David? What's wrong?" I asked, taking a step back from my sedan as a tremor ran through my hand, making the keys jingle softly. He finally reached my driveway, gasping for breath, his chest heaving. "Last night," he panted, "around 11:30, I saw Leo. He was right here, by your car." He paused, leaning against the fender to steady himself. He had a toolkit out. He was under the hood for a good 15 minutes. David's instincts, honed by 30 years on the police force before retirement, were screaming. The second he noticed me watching from my bedroom window, he slammed the hood down and bolted. A sudden, unnatural chill permeated the air in the garage. A cold that had nothing to do with the morning temperature, and everything to do with the terrifying image his words painted in my mind. Leo, my son-in-law, the man who, in a few short hours, stood to inherit a staggering $40 million if his wicked plan had succeeded. My gaze fell upon my familiar sedan, the car that had been my dependable companion for nearly a decade. "Are you positive it was Leo?" I whispered. "Absolutely," David said, his voice firm. "He parked his Mercedes down the block, not in your driveway. He was trying to be invisible." His eyes, full of grim certainty, narrowed. "Susan, I've been to more crime scenes than I can count. I know when something is deeply, fundamentally wrong. Don't you dare drive that car until you have it professionally inspected." I began a slow, deliberate walk around the vehicle, my eyes scanning every inch of its polished exterior. There were no visible marks, no scratches or signs of forced entry. But Leo was anything but a fool. He had been married to my brilliant, meticulous daughter long enough to learn a thing or two about being precise. The morning light filtered into the garage, catching the dust motes as they danced lazily in the air. Silent, glittering witnesses to the sinister act that had taken place in the darkness. Outside, the cheerful chirping of birds in the sprawling oak trees that lined our peaceful suburban street seemed a world away from the deadly plot unfolding in their shade. My mind, always the engineer, started running through the terrifying possibilities. Severed brake lines, a compromised steering column, a sabotaged engine. Any one of those could orchestrate a catastrophic, fatal accident on the highway into downtown Chicago. An accident that would conveniently leave Leo the sole, grieving beneficiary of Clara's immense cybersecurity fortune. "Thank you, David," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "I think you just saved my life." He gave a solemn nod, his face etched with concern. "So, what are you going to do now?" With hands that were now surprisingly steady, I pulled out my smartphone and found Mike Callahan's number in my contacts. If anyone could uncover proof of tampering, it was Mike. He had over 20 years of experience as a master mechanic and an attention to detail that would make a crime scene investigator proud. I'm calling my mechanic for a full professional inspection, I said, meeting David's worried gaze. If Leo thinks he can just remove the one person standing between him and my daughter's money, he's about to get a very rude awakening. The phone felt solid and warm in my palm as I pressed the call button. Whatever Leo had done to my car, I would find it. I would get proof. And then, I would make damn sure that justice was served. Not just for my own safety, but for the memory of my beloved daughter. Mike answered on the second ring. Callahan's Auto. This is Mike. Mike, it's Susan Jordan. I need you over at my house right away. I have reason to believe my car has been sabotaged. There was a brief, stunned silence on the other end. Then, his tone shifted, becoming all business. That's a serious accusation, Susan. Don't touch a thing. I'll be there in 15 minutes with my complete diagnostic setup. I ended the call and began to pace the length of the concrete garage floor, the sharp clicks of my dress shoes echoing in the tense quiet. 15 minutes to wait. 15 minutes to stare at my car, examining every visible part without disturbing an ounce of potential evidence. The sedan sat there under the dim garage light, its deep blue paint gleaming innocently. How many weekends had I spent in this very spot performing routine maintenance? Changing the oil, rotating the tires, swapping out air filters, and now, this same trusted machine might be harboring a device, a modification, designed to end my life. Leo's face swam in my memory, his perfectly composed expression at Clara's funeral. The tears that seemed too practiced, more like a stage performance than an expression of genuine sorrow. He had all of my daughter's outward charm, but none of her foundational integrity. $40 million was a horrifyingly powerful motive. I glanced at my watch. 10 minutes left. The deep rumble of a diesel engine broke my train of thought. Mike's large service van, emblazoned with Callahan's Automotive, honest work, fair prices, in bold green letters, was pulling up behind my sedan. Mike climbed out, a formidable toolbox in hand, his brow furrowed with concern. All right, Susan. Talk me through it while I get set up. My neighbor saw my son-in-law tampering under the hood late last night. I explained, the words tasting like poison. He is the main beneficiary of a very large inheritance, and I'm the only person left in his way. Mike's expression hardened as he activated the hydraulic lift I'd had installed in my garage floor years ago. Money makes people do monstrous things. Let's see what he was up to. The sedan ascended with a soft hum, exposing its underbelly like a patient on an operating table. Mike grabbed a high-intensity flashlight and began a meticulous inspection, starting with the brake system. Well, someone's definitely been in here. His voice was sharp, professional, unlike any tone I'd heard from him before. Look at these cuts on the brake lines. They're clean, precise. This isn't accidental wear and tear from a pothole. I leaned in, my eyes straining to see what he was pointing at. How can you be sure? 20 years I've been doing this, Susan. Normal wear causes fraying, jagged breaks. This was deliberate. These are surgical cuts, designed to fail under pressure, but not immediately. He carefully traced the length of the damaged lines with a gloved finger. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. The cuts are placed to trigger a complete brake failure after several miles of highway driving. My blood turned to ice. Several miles would put me squarely on the Eisenhower Expressway, traveling at 70 miles per hour on my way to downtown Chicago. A complete brake failure at that speed would be a death sentence. So, it was professional work? Without a doubt. And that's not all. Mike shifted his attention to the steering assembly. He loosened the tie rod ends here too. Your steering would have gotten more and more erratic the faster you went. The pieces of his horrifying puzzle slotted into place with sickening clarity. Leo didn't just want me gone. He wanted it to look like a tragic accident, a terrible automotive malfunction that claimed the life of an elderly mother, still grieving the recent loss of her daughter. I took out my phone, and called for a taxi. "Mike, document everything. I need detailed photographs of every single piece of damage." "I'm already on it. This evidence is going straight to the police." "Good," I said, my voice hard as steel. "But first, I have a will reading to attend. Leo is expecting me to die on my way there. Instead, I'm going to have the distinct pleasure of watching his face when I walk through that door very much alive." The taxi arrived just as Mike was finishing up his photographic documentation. I slid into the back seat, my briefcase clutched in my hand. My formal suit no longer felt like a burden. It felt like armor. "A law firm on LaSalle Street downtown," I told the driver, giving him the address. "It's an important meeting." He met my eyes in the rearview mirror as we pulled away from the quiet, tree-lined streets of my suburb. "The most important meeting of my life," I added, my voice a low whisper, as we moved from the familiar quiet of my neighborhood onto the bustling main roads. I let myself absorb the full, monstrous scope of Leo's betrayal. He had planned it all: the timing, the method, the illusion of a random tragedy. $40 million was enough to secure a life of luxury for generations. Clara had poured her soul into building her cybersecurity company from the ground up, creating revolutionary software that now protected some of the country's biggest corporations, banking conglomerates, major healthcare networks, government defense contractors. They all depended on my daughter's genius. She had gone from a determined entrepreneur with a dream to a multi-millionaire in under 5 years. The bitter irony was suffocating. Clara had dedicated her brilliant mind to protecting people from unseen digital dangers, never once imagining that the most lethal threat she faced was sleeping beside her every night. The traffic grew heavier as we neared the Chicago Loop. Soaring glass skyscrapers reached for the overcast sky, their countless windows reflecting the morning sun, like 1,000 unblinking eyes tracking my journey. The taxi expertly weaved between delivery trucks and morning commuters, every mile bringing me closer to the confrontation I now craved. Leo would be there by now, sitting in that polished conference room, probably glancing impatiently at his watch, wondering about my delay. In his depraved imagination, I was supposed to be a mangled wreck on the side of a highway, my death clearing his path to an undisputed fortune. $40 million? I murmured to myself, a sum he was willing to kill for. But he had made a critical miscalculation. He had underestimated the simple power of a good neighbor. David Henderson's watchfulness had not only saved my life, but it had also thrown a spotlight on Leo's murderous heart. Now, instead of inheriting a vast fortune, he would be facing justice. The taxi made the turn onto LaSalle Street, cruising toward the gleaming tower that housed the offices of Davies, Mitchell, and Associates. Through the tinted window, I saw men and women in sharp business suits entering the building: lawyers, brokers, executives, people whose lives orbited the gravitational pull of money and influence. My Clara had been different. Even as her wealth had skyrocketed, she had remained my grounded, brilliant girl, visiting me every weekend, her face alight with excitement as she described new security algorithms and major client acquisitions. She worked grueling 18-hour days, driven not by greed, but by a true passion for shielding others from harm. Leo had never understood that passion. He only saw the results: the Michelin star restaurants, the lavish international vacations, the designer wardrobe. When Clara's health began to fail, his concern had been a performance, his grief a carefully rehearsed act. "Here you are, ma'am. That'll be $43, the driver said. I handed him a 50 and stepped out onto the bustling sidewalk, tilting my head back to look at the imposing glass and steel structure before me. High up on one of those floors, Leo was waiting, supremely confident in the success of his vile scheme. He was about to learn that Susan Jordan was not so easily disposed of. As I walked toward the revolving glass doors, I felt a sense of my daughter's presence, as if her hand were resting on my shoulder, guiding me forward. Today, justice would be served. Today, I would protect Clara's legacy from the man who had betrayed her love and tried to take her mother's life. The elevator doors slid open before me, like the gates to a battlefield I was now, finally, ready to enter. Downtown Chicago rose around the taxi like a concrete forest, each glass tower reflecting fragments of morning light. I settled deeper into the worn leather seat, pulling out my phone to review the medical documents I'd photographed weeks ago. Clara's health records told a disturbing story. March 28th, her first complaint of fatigue and stomach discomfort. April 20th, severe nausea and rapid weight loss. April 18th, gone. Just 3 weeks. Healthy 42-year-old women didn't just wither away in 21 days. I scrolled through the timeline, my engineer's mind cataloging the glaring inconsistencies. Clara had always been so diligent about her health, with regular checkups, a dedicated fitness routine, and a focus on preventive care. The medical timeline made absolutely no sense. Unknown gastrointestinal complications. The death certificate stated, unknown. As if all the power of modern medicine couldn't figure out what had killed a vibrant, healthy woman in the prime of her life. Leo had seized control of every aspect of her medical care. He had insisted on certain doctors, moved her to a private treatment facility, and severely limited her visiting hours. Even I, her own mother, was only allowed brief, supervised visits in her final, fading days. A text message from that last week buzzed in my memory. Mom, if something happens to me, be careful with Leo. At the time, I'd brushed it off as paranoia, perhaps induced by the heavy medication. Terminal patients often grow suspicious of those around them. But now, with the reality of severed brake lines in my own garage, Clara's warning felt like a chilling prophecy. The taxi navigated the dense downtown traffic, passing familiar landmarks that now seemed alien and menacing. The whole world looks different when you're viewing it through the lens of murder. Clara's cybersecurity firm had made her wealthier than we had ever dreamed possible. Government contracts, banking security, healthcare protection systems. Her software was the silent guardian for billions of dollars in digital assets. Leo had married into that fortune. But he had never appreciated the genius and relentless work that built it. To him, Clara was a machine that generated money, not a brilliant innovator protecting society from digital predators. When that machine began to sputter, he had simply found a way to expedite its final shutdown. The medical records revealed another troubling detail. Clara's longtime primary care physician had been mysteriously unavailable during that critical 3-week period. Leo had pushed for a replacement, a doctor with a glittering resume but no prior history with my daughter. Experimental treatment, he had called it. Cutting-edge therapy for rare conditions. A cutting-edge therapy that seemed only to hasten her decline instead of halting it. I closed the medical files on my phone and stared out at the approaching law firm building. Somewhere up in that tower, Leo was waiting to claim his prize for 3 weeks of methodical poisoning, followed by the attempted murder of the only person who could challenge him. He had underestimated the strength of a neighborhood friendship and the ferocious resolve of a mother determined to protect her child's legacy. Today, his intricate, evil plan would completely unravel in the most public way imaginable. The taxi slowed as we approached the gleaming office tower. It was time to face the man who had murdered my daughter and tried to murder me. It was time to ensure that greed would not triumph over justice. Clara's final warning echoed in my mind as I stepped out of the cab. This time, I was listening. The elevator whisked me up to the 47th floor with a smooth mechanical efficiency, each floor that chimed past marking another step toward the inevitable confrontation. The offices of Davies, Mitchell, and Associates were the epitome of corporate success. Panoramic windows offered breathtaking views of Lake Michigan. Lustrous marble floors reflected the glow of expensive chandeliers, and plush leather furniture whispered of immense wealth and power. And there he was. Leo sat in a burgundy armchair near the reception desk, casually leafing through a glossy luxury lifestyle magazine. He wore a tailored black suit that likely cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. His dark hair styled into a perfect, artful wave that framed his handsome, deceitful face. He glanced up as I approached, and I watched, with grim satisfaction, as every drop of color drained from his cheeks, like water vanishing from a shattered vase. The magazine slipped from his numb fingers and landed with a soft thud on the pristine marble. "Hello, Leo," I said, my voice perfectly level and calm. "Surprised to see me?" His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Finally, he managed to stammer. "Susan, I didn't think you were coming." "Really? That's fascinating," I replied, stepping closer. I noted the way his knuckles were white as he gripped the arms of the chair. "And why exactly would you think that? Could it have anything to do with what you were doing under the hood of my car last night around 11:30? "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, the denial coming out too fast, too sharp. Guilty people always protest too loudly. "David Henderson saw everything, Leo. The tools you had, the 15 minutes you spent tinkering with my engine, the way you ran like a coward when you realized he was watching from his window." He shot to his feet. A pathetic attempt to use his height to reclaim some sense of control. "That's absurd. Why would I ever—" "For the same reason you murdered my daughter." The accusation hung in the air between us, as heavy and sharp as a guillotine's blade. For a fleeting second, Leo's carefully crafted mask of the grieving widower slipped, revealing the cold, calculating monster that lurked beneath. Other clients moved through the opulent reception area, their quiet conversations providing a surreal backdrop to our deadly exchange. We were constrained by the setting, this temple of legal decorum, preventing the explosion we both knew was coming. "You're clearly distraught," Leo said, his composure returning with practiced ease. "Grief can make a person imagine all sorts of things. Can it make brake lines cut themselves? Can it cause steering components to loosen themselves overnight?" His jaw clenched. "I have no idea what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Facts that have been thoroughly documented by a certified mechanic with 2 decades of experience." Leo's eyes darted nervously toward the conference room, where the will was to be read. Then back to me. I could almost see the gears turning in his head as he calculated new lines of attack, new lies to spin. "You know what your problem is, Susan?" he hissed, his voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "You never accepted that Clara chose me. You couldn't stand that she had a life outside of your narrow little world. She loved me, not you," he sneered. "She warned me about you. Right before she died." I countered, my own voice low and steady. "I should have listened then. She was delirious from medication. Terminal patients say all kinds of crazy things." The receptionist glanced our way, her polite smile faltering as she sensed the palpable tension between us. Leo caught her look and forced a smile of his own, instantly resuming his role as the concerned son-in-law meeting with his grieving mother-in-law. But I saw the predatory calculation in his eyes, the quick assessment of how much damage this confrontation could do to his plans. He was already plotting his next move, preparing to deploy whatever weapons he had left. The conference room door, made of frosted glass, beckoned. Behind it, lawyers waited with the documents that would decide the fate of $40 million. Leo thought he knew exactly how this story was going to end. He was about to find out just how wrong he was. Leo moved toward the panoramic windows that overlooked Lake Michigan, deliberately using the spectacular view as a backdrop for what he imagined would be his final, triumphant moment. The bright morning sun streamed into the reception area, casting long, dramatic shadows, and he positioned himself perfectly, framed by the light, like a portrait of a conquering king. "You know what, Susan?" he said, his voice dripping with a confidence that bordered on pure arrogance. "None of this matters. Clara left me everything. $40 million. Every last cent." He turned to face me, his expression shifting from defensive anxiety to one of cold, smug satisfaction. And you? You get nothing. Absolutely nothing. We'll see about that, I said calmly. Oh, I've already seen, Leo scoffed, his smile turning predatory. I was her husband. I was there for her. In sickness and in health. For better or for worse. Until death did us part. Yes, you certainly took care of her, didn't you? My pointed remark seemed to roll right off him. Like water off the expensive fabric of his suit. He was too high on the prospect of his imminent wealth to register the full weight of my accusation. I have lawyers, Susan. The best lawyers money can buy. You can try to contest the will, but spousal inheritance laws in Illinois are ironclad. He gestured grandly toward the stunning lake view, as if he already owned it. See that new penthouse building on the shoreline? I've already put a deposit down on the corner unit. The casual, almost flippant, revelation of his spending plans hit me like a physical blow. My daughter had been gone less than a month, and he was already shopping for luxury condos with her money. 40 million buys a lot of freedom, he went on, warming to his subject. Travel. Cars. The finest restaurants. I'm finally going to live the life I was born for, instead of playing nursemaid to a dying woman. His words laid bare the true depth of his callousness. There was no grief for his lost wife. Not even a token acknowledgement of a life cut tragically short. Only cold, materialistic calculations on how to most effectively spend her blood money. Clara worked 18-hour days to build that company from nothing, I said, my voice quiet but firm. She revolutionized the entire field of cybersecurity. She protected millions of people. That fortune is the result of years of her brilliance and dedication. And now it's mine, Leo declared, his voice ringing with the satisfaction of someone who believes they've outsmarted the entire world. You always looked down on me, Susan. You never thought I was good enough for your precious daughter. Well, guess what? I won. Other people in the reception area were beginning to notice our increasingly tense conversation, but Leo seemed completely oblivious, drunk on his own perceived victory. He had become reckless, shamelessly displaying his true, monstrous nature for all to see. You don't have any idea what Clara was truly worth, do you? I asked. $40 million. I know exactly what she was worth, he sneered. And I have the truth, I said. Leo let out a short, sharp laugh, a sound like shattering glass. Truth doesn't pay for penthouses in Chicago, or vacations in Monaco. Money does. And in about 10 minutes, I'll have all the money I could ever want. He stepped closer, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper meant only for me. Want to know a little secret, Susan? Clara never loved you as much as you think she did. She used to complain about you constantly, about how you were always interfering. She said you were just a bitter old woman who couldn't accept that she'd grown up and moved on. The lie was crafted to wound, a final, cruel twist of the knife before the legal proceedings finished me off. But Leo had miscalculated badly. Instead of breaking my spirit, his cruelty only galvanized my resolve. Mr. and Mrs. Jordan? The receptionist's polite voice cut through the tension. Mr. Davies is ready for you in conference room A. Leo straightened his suit jacket and glanced at his reflection in the window, smoothing his hair. Showtime, he murmured. He strode toward the conference room with the unshakable confidence of a man who knows he holds all the winning cards. The sharp clicks of his expensive shoes on the marble floor sounded like a countdown to his coronation. I followed a few paces behind, my own steps measured and deliberate. Leo believed he was walking toward a future of limitless wealth and freedom. In reality, he was walking toward the complete and utter annihilation of everything he had schemed to attain. Mr. and Mrs. Jordan, the receptionist repeated, gesturing toward a heavy mahogany door with a polished brass nameplate that read, Arthur Davies, Senior Partner. Please, come in. Mr. Davies' private office was even more impressive than the reception area, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a commanding view of Lake Michigan. Walls were lined with leather-bound legal texts, and his enormous desk was laden with thick stacks of documents. He rose as we entered, a distinguished man with silver hair that caught the afternoon light. "Please, have a seat at the conference table." His voice was calm and authoritative, the voice of a man who had presided over countless such readings. "Before we proceed, I am required to verify identities and review all the necessary legal protocols." Leo, ever the showman, selected the chair with the best view of the window, positioning himself so the natural light would perfectly illuminate his moment of victory. I sat directly across from him, noticing how he'd already placed his designer briefcase and smartphone on the table, as if preparing to immediately start managing his new fortune. "This is the last will and testament of Clara Jordan, properly executed and notarized on April 2025. Mr. Davies began, opening a formal-looking folder with practiced precision. "All legal requirements have been met, including verification by 3 independent witnesses and official state certification. April honest. Just 2 weeks before Clara passed away, she had been terribly weak, but her mind was still as sharp as ever, fully capable of making critical decisions about her own legacy. Clara was exceptionally clear about her final wishes." Mr. Davies continued, adjusting his reading glasses. "She wanted to ensure, above all else, the welfare of her mother." Leo's self-satisfied smile didn't falter. He likely interpreted this as a small, generous provision for my retirement, a token gesture before he claimed the lion's share of the estate. Mr. Davies cleared his throat. "I will now quote directly from the document. I hereby bequeath my entire estate, valued at approximately $40 million, including all liquid assets, properties, investments, and business holdings, to my mother, Susan Jordan, in recognition of her lifelong love, guidance, and unwavering support." The words struck Leo like a physical blow. His face went deathly pale, and his hands shot out to grip the edge of the heavy conference table, as if the entire room had suddenly tilted on its axis. "What?" The word was a strangled whisper. That's not possible." Mr. Davies continued reading, his voice a steady, professional drone. "Furthermore, Clara included a personal addendum, to be shared privately with you, Susan." He slid a sealed envelope out of the folder and passed it across the table to me. It was in her own handwriting. My hands trembled as I read my daughter's final, desperate warning. "Mom, be careful with Leo. I believe he may try to harm you to claim the inheritance. Trust your instincts about his true nature." She had known. Even through the fog of illness and his careful deception, my brilliant Clara had seen him for what he was and had taken steps to protect me. Leo stared at the official will, his eyes wide with disbelief, as if it were written in a language he couldn't comprehend. "This can't be legal. I'm her husband. Spousal inheritance rights are superseded by a properly executed testamentary document," Mr. Davies interjected calmly. "Illinois state law allows individuals to distribute their estates as they see fit, provided all legal formalities are observed." But $40 million? Leo's voice cracked, the sound of his entire world shattering. "Goes entirely to Mrs. Susan Jordan, as is clearly stipulated in multiple sections of this document," Mr. Davies confirmed. I watched as Leo's carefully constructed universe imploded in real time. All of his plotting, his feigned kindness during Clara's illness, his murderous, cowardly schemes, all of it was rendered utterly meaningless by my daughter's foresight and love. From beyond the grave, Clara had seen his true character and shielded me from his evil. Leo's hands shook uncontrollably as he reached for the will, as if simply touching the paper could magically change the words written on it. Leo's shock morphed into pure, unadulterated rage. He shot up from his chair with such violence that it toppled over backward, crashing loudly against the polished hardwood floor. "This is a forgery. It has to be. I'll prove it!" he shrieked. Mr. Davies remained seated. His calm demeanor, a stark contrast to Leo's unraveling hysteria. "The document, Mr. Jordan, was notarized and witnessed by 3 independent parties, including your wife's personal physician and her longtime business partner." "I don't care!" Leo lunged across the conference table, his manicured fingers clawing desperately for the legal papers. "Give me that will." Mr. Davies smoothly gathered the documents and moved them just out of his reach. "Mr. Jordan, I must insist that you compose yourself. These are certified copies. The original is secured in a vault." Leo's sophisticated facade had completely disintegrated. The grieving widower, the charming husband, the suave socialite all gone. In their place was a cornered, desperate animal whose meticulous plans had just blown up in his face. "I will contest this. You'll never see a dime of that money." He spun to face me, his eyes blazing with a furious, hateful light. "I wasted 3 years of my life married to your pathetic daughter. I earned that inheritance." "Earned it?" I stood up slowly, my voice deadly quiet. "By poisoning her?" The accusation struck the air like lightning. Leo's face went from white to crimson, as pure rage eclipsed his shock. "You can't prove a thing. Clara was sick. Healthy women don't die in 3 weeks from unknown complications," I said, moving toward him, watching as he instinctively backed away toward the window. "But you already knew that, didn't you? You knew exactly what you were feeding her." He made another desperate grab for the documents, managing to snatch a single page before Mr. Davies could react. He began tearing at it frantically, but the thick, high-quality legal paper resisted his efforts. "This won't change a thing, Mr. Davies said calmly, reaching for the phone on his desk. "As I said, these are only copies." "I want the originals!" Leo screamed, throwing the torn scraps of paper at my feet. "I want every copy burned!" "Security?" Mr. Davies spoke into the receiver. "Yes. This is Arthur Davies in Conference Room A. I require assistance with a highly unstable individual." Leo's eyes darted to the door, then back to the windows. A trapped animal looking for an escape. The wealthy, composed man he pretended to be was gone, replaced by something feral and unhinged. "You think you've won?" he shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at me. "I will drag this through the courts for a decade. I'll tie up every single dollar until you're dead and buried." "Run all you want, Leo," I said, my voice steady and controlled. "Justice has a way of catching up." 2 uniformed security guards appeared in the doorway, their solid presence instantly altering the dynamic in the room. Mr. Davies gestured toward Leo with detached, professional courtesy. "Please escort Mr. Jordan from the premises. He is no longer welcome in our offices." As the guards moved toward him, Leo made one last desperate lunge for Mr. Davies' briefcase, but his expensive, slick-soled shoes betrayed him. He stumbled, losing his balance, his dignity as shattered and worthless as his schemes. "This isn't over!" he screamed as the guards gently but firmly guided him toward the exit. "I will destroy every single one of you." The conference room descended into a sudden, profound silence, broken only by the faint sound of Leo's receding protests, echoing down the long corridor. Mr. Davies straightened his tie and began to collect the scattered fragments of paper. "Well," he said, with magnificent understatement, "that certainly could have gone more smoothly." I sank back into my chair, the emotional whiplash of the last hour washing over me. My daughter had protected me from beyond the grave, and in his rage, Leo had revealed his true, monstrous self for all to see. The war was by no means over, but this first, decisive battle belonged to justice. Mr. Dations too. Davies closed the conference room door, and a sense of professional calm began to settle back over the office. Like dust after a storm, he methodically organized the scattered legal documents. His movements precise and deliberate, a stark contrast to the chaos Leo had just unleashed. "I must sincerely apologize for that outburst," he said, straightening his suit jacket. "In 30 years of practicing estate law, I have rarely witnessed such a violent reaction to testamentary proceedings." He was expecting to walk out of here with $40 million. I said, still seated, my mind trying to process everything. That's a powerful motivation for delusion. Just then, my phone buzzed on the polished surface of the conference table. Mike Callahan's name lit up the screen. I had almost forgotten his promise to complete his investigation of my car. "Mike, what have you got?" "Susan, you need to hear this." His voice was urgent, making my heart beat faster. This wasn't just simple sabotage. This was an attempted murder, carried out with professional-grade skill. "Mr. Davies looked up from his papers, his sharp legal mind clearly absorbing my side of the conversation in the quiet office. "Explain exactly what you found," I urged. "Your brake lines were severed with surgical precision. This wasn't some amateur with a pair of wire cutters." Mike's voice was full of the authority of a man who had seen it all. "The cuts were strategically placed to cause a catastrophic brake failure after approximately 10 miles of highway driving. 10 miles. The exact distance from my quiet suburban street to the entrance ramp of the downtown expressway, where I would have been accelerating to 70 miles per hour with absolutely no way to stop. Are you 100% certain it was deliberate?" "100%. I've documented every angle, with high-resolution photographs and precise measurements. The tools used were professional grade, and the technique shows an advanced, intimate knowledge of automotive brake systems." Mr. Davies leaned forward, his legal mind immediately grasping the staggering implications. "Mike, this is Arthur Davies, Susan's attorney. Would you be willing to provide expert testimony regarding these findings in a court of law?" "Absolutely," Mike said without hesitation. "I've preserved all the evidence, and I'm already compiling a detailed technical report. This kind of sabotage could only be done by someone with specific, expert knowledge, or by someone who hired a professional who has that knowledge." Leo's expensive lifestyle suddenly seemed even more sinister, suggesting connections to people who would do anything for the right price. "There's more," Mike continued. "The steering components were also compromised. Even if you had managed to use the emergency brake, the entire vehicle would have become dangerously unstable at high speeds." Mr. Davies was already scribbling furiously on a legal pad. "We can use this. This is concrete evidence we can use to press for criminal charges of attempted murder. He murdered my daughter, and he tried to murder me." The words came out flat, devoid of emotion, but they carried the weight of absolute certainty. Now, he will pay for both of his crimes. Mike's technical expertise had given us the final, crucial piece of evidence we needed to build an ironclad case against Leo. Combined with Clara's chilling letter and his own explosive, self-incriminating reaction to the will, we now had everything we needed to ensure he faced the full force of the law. "I'll contact the Cook County District Attorney's office first thing in the morning," Mr. Davies said, already reaching for his phone. "Between the attempted inheritance fraud and this documented evidence of attempted murder, Leo Jordan is about to face a world of legal trouble." The afternoon sun slanted through the massive windows, casting long shadows across the legal documents that had saved my life. Clara's foresight had not only protected me, but it had also preserved her legacy for the causes she truly believed in. Leo's insatiable greed had finally met its match, defeated by a mother's love and a daughter's wisdom. Justice was no longer a hope. It was an impending reality. The next morning brought with it a sunrise and a new sense of clarity. With Clara's inheritance secure, I could pour all my energy into making sure Leo faced the criminal consequences he so richly deserved. My home office was transformed into a command center, with documents and files spread across every available surface, looking like a scene from a detective movie. Miss Davies had recommended a private investigator named Frank Miller, a man with 2 decades of experience specializing in financial crimes. We met that afternoon in a quiet downtown coffee shop. His weathered face held a look of weary skepticism, the kind that only comes from witnessing the depths of human greed one too many times. 3 days later, Frank was at my kitchen table, sliding a thick manila folder toward me. "Mr. Jordan has accumulated a staggering amount of credit card debt," he reported. "Over $200,000 in the last 18 months alone. Luxury goods, 5-star restaurants, designer clothes, all of it charged while his wife was dying." The financial records painted a damning portrait of a man living far beyond his means, supremely confident that his wife's imminent death would be his golden ticket. On the 4th day, Dr. Evelyn Reed, the medical expert Mr. Davies had brought on board, arrived with her full analysis of Clara's medical files. Her expression was grim as she laid out a series of lab reports on my dining room table. "The symptom progression, Mrs. Jordan, is a textbook case of arsenic poisoning," she stated, her voice carrying the quiet authority of an expert who had testified in dozens of criminal trials. "The timeline shows a gradual accumulation, followed by rapid, catastrophic organ failure. Each new piece of evidence felt like another nail being hammered into Leo's metaphorical coffin. But the most viscerally satisfying discovery came from my own methodical inquiries. I had started canvassing my neighborhood, asking about home security systems. Mrs. Gable, who lived 3 houses down, had a state-of-the-art, high-definition camera system that covered the entire street. The footage was shockingly clear. Leo's Mercedes pulling up at 11:47 p.m., his shadowy figure moving with deliberate purpose toward my garage, the tools in his hand glinting under the pale glow of a streetlight. "Camera 3 shows him clearly working under the hood of your car," the security technician confirmed, as he froze the frame at the perfect, incriminating angle. "The timestamp is precise, and the video resolution leaves absolutely no doubt as to his identity." By the 5th day, I had assembled a mountain of irrefutable evidence against Leo. A clear financial motive, the means, the opportunity, and expert testimony to back up every single accusation. We could now prove his guilt in both Clara's murder and the attempt on my own life. Mike Callahan's meticulous mechanical analysis remained the crown jewel professional-grade sabotage designed to cause a fatal accident, documented with photos and technical specifications that would leave no doubt in any juror's mind. That evening, I sat in my study, surrounded by the folders that contained the story of Leo's crimes. His financial desperation, the medical proof of Clara's poisoning, the chilling security footage of his sabotage attempt, and the expert reports supporting it all. My phone buzzed with a text from Mr. Davies. "DA wants a meeting tomorrow morning. Bring everything." The vast, slow-moving machinery of the legal system was finally grinding into motion. Leo had planned his murderous plot down to the last detail, but he had failed to account for one critical, unstoppable force: a mother's unwavering determination to get justice for her child. Clara's warning from beyond the grave had saved my life and unmasked her killer. Now, it was time to make sure he paid the ultimate price. I gathered the evidence files into my briefcase, preparing for what I knew would be Leo's last day of freedom. Leo's house was in an affluent suburb, just 20 minutes from downtown Chicago. Its perfectly manicured lawn and grand circular driveway were a testament to the luxurious lifestyle he had been so desperate to maintain. 2 high-end cars, a Mercedes and a BMW, gleamed in the morning sun, both likely financed with credit he knew he could never repay. I parked my car across the street and walked with deliberate, steady steps to his front door, carrying the large manila envelope that would bring his world crashing down. The court documents felt heavy and substantial in my hands. Arrest warrants, papers for a civil lawsuit, and a comprehensive summary of the evidence detailing every facet of his criminal conspiracy. Leo answered the door wearing an expensive silk robe, his hair perfectly coiffed despite the early hour. When he saw me standing on his pristine doorstep, the color drained from his face, leaving him looking pale and fragile. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly, betraying his attempt to sound indignant. "This is an official court summons for the charges of attempted murder," I said, handing him the envelope with a sense of cold, formal ceremony. Also included are the documents for a civil suit regarding inheritance fraud and intentional infliction of emotional distress. He stared down at the papers in his hand, as if they were written in a foreign language. "You can't prove anything," he stammered. "This is harassment. We have video footage from 3 different security cameras showing you sabotaging my car," I stated calmly. "We have a technical analysis from a certified automotive expert. We have medical testimony indicating arsenic poisoning. And we have financial records detailing your $200,000 debt motive." Each piece of evidence I listed seemed to land like a physical blow. Leo clutched the doorframe, his expensive, confident facade crumbling away in real time. "The district attorney has officially accepted the case for prosecution," I continued, my voice even and professional. "A trial date has been set for next month. I just thought you deserved to be notified in person." "I'll destroy you in court," he snarled, taking an aggressive step forward. But his silk slippers on the slick marble entryway made the gesture look more pathetic than threatening. "You'll never prove I did anything to Clara. Dr. Evelyn Reed will testify about the classic symptoms of arsenic poisoning. Frank Miller will present the evidence of your financial desperation. Mike Callahan will explain to the jury exactly how professional automotive sabotage works." I kept my voice perfectly level, letting the facts build a prison around him. "The evidence speaks for itself, Leo." His eyes darted around his manicured, expensive neighborhood, as if he was calculating which of his neighbors might be witnessing his public downfall. The bright morning sun seemed to highlight every line of panic that was now etched across his handsome features. "You think you've won?" he shrieked, his voice rising in pitch. "I'll appeal everything. I will tie this up in court for the rest of your life." "You already destroyed yourself, Leo," I said quietly. "This is just making it official." He clutched the legal documents to his chest, as if they were a shield that could somehow protect him from the consequences of his own evil. But we both knew the truth. His carefully constructed world was collapsing, and no amount of designer clothing or high-priced lawyers could ever put it back together. "Clara warned me about you," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I just should have listened sooner." With a final, desperate cry of rage, Leo slammed the door with enough force to rattle the ornate glass panels. Through the window, I saw him sink to the marble floor, still clutching the papers that would seal his fate. I walked back to my car, my steps measured and sure, feeling the comforting weight of Clara's presence on my shoulder. Justice was no longer a distant hope. It was an unstoppable legal machine, grinding relentlessly toward its inevitable conclusion. 3 weeks later, Judge Eleanor Vance delivered the verdict that echoed through the packed Chicago courtroom. "Leo Jordan, you are hereby sentenced to 15 years in a maximum security prison, without the possibility of parole, for the crimes of attempted murder and inheritance fraud." The final, sharp strike of the gavel marked the end of Leo's freedom, and the true beginning of justice for my daughter's memory. As I stood, reporters surged forward, their questions a chaotic but welcome chorus of vindication. "Justice has prevailed," I told the assembled media on the courthouse steps. "My daughter can finally rest in peace, knowing that her killer has been held accountable for his actions." Leo's conviction became a major story across Illinois. The wealthy, charming widower who poisoned his wife and tried to murder his mother-in-law became a grim cautionary tale about the ultimate price of greed. He would spend the next 15 years of his life in a prison cell, his lavish lifestyle replaced by institutional meals and a prison uniform. But my deepest satisfaction didn't come from his punishment. It came from the opportunity to transform Clara's legacy into something powerful and positive. 6 months after the trial, the Clara Jordan Cancer Research Foundation was launched, funded entirely by the $40 million inheritance that Leo had killed to possess. Your $40 million donation will fund groundbreaking research for decades to come, Dr. Ramirez announced at the foundation's official groundbreaking ceremony. Countless lives will be saved because of your daughter's vision and your incredible generosity. Standing there, before the assembled crowd of dedicated medical researchers and community leaders, I felt Clara's presence more strongly than ever. Her brilliant, innovative spirit would now live on through the Foundation's vital work, protecting others from the very disease that had made her vulnerable to Leo's poison. I had since downsized, moving to a comfortable but modest home near the shores of Lake Michigan, keeping only the things that brought me genuine joy. The rest of my time and energy were dedicated to charitable work. I traveled to visit cancer research facilities, sat with patient families, and worked to ensure that every dollar of Clara's money was used to create hope, not destruction. David Henderson still checked in on me regularly, our friendship forever bonded by the shared experience of that fateful morning. Mike Callahan had become more than just my mechanic. He was a trusted friend who had used his expertise to help expose a murderer. Mr. Davies handled all the Foundation's legal affairs pro bono, ensuring every cent went exactly where it was intended. Together, we had built something beautiful and lasting from the ashes of a terrible tragedy, transforming Leo's greed into a powerful force for healing and discovery. 1 year after the trial, I visited Clara's grave to tell her about the Foundation's first major research breakthrough, a new, promising treatment protocol that had the potential to save hundreds of lives every year. My sweet girl. I kept my promise, I whispered, my hand resting on the cool granite stone that bore her name. Your killer is paying for his crimes, and your legacy is helping others fight the battle that you couldn't win. From unspeakable tragedy, we had found a new purpose. From devastating loss, we had cultivated hope. Leo's attempt to destroy our family had, in the end, created something beautiful and enduring, a testament to love conquering greed, justice prevailing over evil, and a mother's unbreakable promise to honor her daughter's memory. The inheritance he had killed for was now funding the very research that might one day have saved Clara's life. And in the end, that felt like the most perfect, poetic justice of all. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.